Prepare to disintegrate some Jawas and the best eggs you've ever had, because just 3 days after the first episode premiered, we have episode 2 of The Mandalorian, and it is f***ing awesome. You're going to want to stick around for the entire video because I'll be breaking down the whole episode with all its Star Wars Easter eggs and new details on what could be in store for The Mandalorian and the little green one known as the Child. So here we go. We pick up shortly after the events of episode 1 with the Mandalorian taking the Child through a deserted chasm. And if we know anything about chasms, they're usually perfectly safe. In episode 1, I was curious whether the Child was being held aloft by the Force or if it was the machine itself, and this episode answers that question when we see the Mandalorian able to program its movements. The two of them are traveling back to the Mandalorian ship, the Razor Crest, so that the Mandalorian can claim his reward. One of the things I love about this intro scene are the little cutaway shots of these new sand creatures. It's just a small detail, but it adds so much to the world-building aspect of the show. They want to show us these unique worlds with their own creatures. Now, we still don't know what planet this is. I've heard some people suggest Tatooine, but I don't think it is based off two criteria. One, we haven't seen the binary sun, and two, the Jawas we meet later, although native to Tatooine, wear different colored robes. Regardless, we simply don't have any definitive proof, but I think if it were Tatooine, they would have made it obvious because fans would just go nuts. One of the cool things you may have missed are the shadows in the background, foreshadowing the Mandalorian getting ambushed by a group of bounty hunters. We know they're bounty hunters by the tracking fob similar to the ones the Mandalorian was given in episode 1 to track his bounties. They are part of the Trandoshan race, although the makeup is considerably better than when this species made its first appearance in episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, with the bounty hunter Bosk. Both are reptilian in nature and have these almost claw-like hands. I also want to quickly mention the great detail the costume designers have put into the Mandalorian's suit. The red display panel looks like it's practical, not CGI, which I love. And since the panel is on the right side, it's likely instrumental in working his flamethrower, which we'll see used later on in the episode. But who sent this team of 3 bounty hunters? Could it be the client just wanting to make sure he gets the asset? Could it be the person or persons who sent the bounty hunter droid IG-11 last episode? Or could it be an entirely different party we haven't yet met? Unfortunately, other than the tracking fob, the bounty hunters offer no real clues as to who sent them. We also get to see the Mandalorian really putting to work his Ambin Phase Blaster, using it at close range to shock his opponents as well as long range to completely disintegrate his enemies. As we'll later find out when the Mandalorian goes Jawa hunting, the blaster component needs to be reloaded after each shot. These ammo rounds can be found in the shell casing type rounds on his knees and chest. After the battle, the Mandalorian and Child rest along the gorgeous tinge of the setting sun. The Mandalorian is busy trying to cauterize his wound. The Child even gets out of his pod, outstretching his hand, seemingly trying to heal it, but is put back when the Mandalorian notices him. We should definitely add healing powers as a potential ability the Child can use, and that we'll likely see this in upcoming episodes. We also get a glimpse at the inside plating of Mando's armor, which resembles more like the inside of a computer than armor. With all the gadgets he has going on, it's not a surprise. Making their way back to the Razor Crest, the Mandalorian finds a group of Jawas completely dismantling his ship. Next to it is a giant sandcrawler vehicle, which you might recognize from A New Hope. These mobile fortresses were used both as transport and shelter and could fit an entire Jawa clan. They even contain magnetic suction tubes for sucking in droids and scrap into the cargo hold. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is also the first time we've seen the cockpit of a sandcrawler, which seems to operate more on a system of levers than advanced technology. There's even this large tube here used to communicate to other areas of the ship. And let the Jawa massacre begin. The Mandalorian goes to town, disintegrating several Jawa as they flee with his ship parts. He runs after it with the Child following in his pod. This whole action set piece was a ton of fun, and I have to say, it feels very Star Wars. Even the sound effects used when he's hit over the head with random pieces of scrap are borderline cartoony in nature, although I'm a bit disappointed there was no Wilhelm scream. The Mandalorian ends up using his grappling line to climb the side of the crawler. The grappling line is traditionally an anti-Jedi weapon, with cords strong enough that even a lightsaber can't penetrate. If used accurately, it can even be used to retrieve a lightsaber directly from the hands of its wielder. Unfortunately for the Mandalorian, when he makes it to the top, a flock of Jawa, what do we call a group of Jawa? Is it just Jawa? Jawanese? Jawana man? Well, they totally shock the crap out of him, his body falling over the side onto the desert sand below. The Mandalorian investigates what's left of his ship. It's been completely gutted, like even his engine does a little fart. Inside we see his weapons cache from episode 1 has also been pilfered. And look at this, oh my god, it's so cute. With this little one now to take care of, the Mandalorian heads back to Queel's outpost. There are some gorgeous traveling shots with cinematography done by Barry Baz Idewine, who also worked on Rogue One. Even the transitions follow in the Star Wars traditions, utilizing feathered wipes to illustrate the passing of time. Back at Queel's outpost, Queel is surprised that this child was the cause of all this fuss. Whatever significance this child holds must be of great importance for an entire platoon of mercenaries to have guarded it, as well as bounty hunters tasked with its retrieval. Queel makes a fun remark that because this green thing is a child, it's good that the Mando brought it back alive, even though it's 50 years old. There's just one problem. How is he gonna get off this planet? Queel suggests they barter with the Jawa, which I'm sure they won't take too kindly to since he just killed a bunch of their people. But if the Mandalorian is to make it off this planet, he'll need to get those parts. Queel here also gives him a tool which helps him fix his grappling line. His entire armor has been put through the ringer these last 2 episodes. Oh, and who can forget the child just straight up swallowing this fog creature? Damn. Through torrential downpour, Queel navigates a blurg pulling one of those levitating scrap haulers. And in this next shot you can see the attention to detail, even the ground has pools of muddy water from last night's rain. The Jawa have set up shop here, and upon realizing the Mandalorian is there, they go on high alert, and rightfully so.
They really don't like you for some reason.
Yeah, he killed like 6 of their people. The Jawa demand that the Mandalorian drop his weapons, but he says they're part of his religion, and he'd be right. The Mandalorian religion is one of war. They even believe that to wage war was to be divine. In modern times, however, their religion has become more secular and pragmatic. The word Manda describes a collective soul, and those who do not believe in the faith are considered Darmanda or soulless. We're only on episode 2, but with the Mandalorian growing up as a foundling or orphan, who knows what spiritual or religious upbringing has shaped the way he sees the world. At first, the Jawa are willing to trade his parts for Beskar steel, but that's a deal breaker, as well as the child who they offer to exchange. And if there's one thing we've learned about the Mandalorian here, it's that he's not that great at negotiations.
You understand this?
With nothing really to exchange, the Jawa say that if he can capture an item known only as the egg, they will give him back his parts. He's dropped off near the entrance to a creepy-ass cave and checks his gear. I'm really enjoying how they're showcasing all of his gadgets, including this helmet-mounted flashlight, which they never show if it comes out of his helmet or if it's some sort of accessory. Inside the cave are a bunch of bones. Star Wars has a history of bones in caves. This is the lair of a creature known as a mudhorn, at least according to the official subtitles, a hairy rhinoceros-type creature who really is just trying to protect its young, kinda like how the Mandalorian is trying to protect this young one. After a few blaster shots, which only seem to piss off the mudhorn more, the Mandalorian is knocked out into the open where the majority of their battle takes place. Both the flamethrower and grappling line are ineffective against its hard outer exterior. The mudhorn prepares for one final blow against our hero, the Mandalorian even defending himself with this dinky knife, when suddenly the child uses the Force to levitate this giant creature. The amount of power required for this is so great that it only lasts a few seconds before the child passes out, giving the Mandalorian enough time to stab the creature in the side with what appears to be a Cal dagger, the traditional Mandalorian dagger usually forged from Beskar iron. What I find really interesting here is that this creature dies shortly after. Was this tiny dagger able to kill the beast, or is there something else at play here? Did the child injure the beast in another way? When the Mandalorian is driving back with the parts, Queel asks if the child was injured, to which the Mandalorian says, "I don't know, at least not physically." I want to know your thoughts about this below, since it seems like a huge stretch that this tiny dagger was able to bring down this giant beast. And holy crap, that armor is gonna need to be cleaned. Well, that and fixed, it's still sparking. With the mudhorn defeated, the Mandalorian is able to retrieve the egg, which looks like it's covered in thick hair, and Mando catches the Jawas just in the nick of time before they are going to leave. He gives them the egg, which they then proceed to open and feast on.
Gross.
Kuiil and the Mandalorian get to work on the ship, which he says will take a few days to put together, and we get this sweet montage of the two of them going at it.
We're gonna need a montage.
With the Razor Crest finally fixed, the Mandalorian offers Kuiil part of the reward, which he turns down. His reward was having peace restored to the valley. The Mandalorian even offers him a position as a crew member on his ship, which is also turned down. And the fact the Mandalorian is looking for good crew members means we'll likely acquire a few as this season progresses. The Mando says goodbye to Kuiil and takes off into space with the child, back to retrieve his bounty from the client. But with several people searching for this kid, he'll undoubtedly have some trouble along the way. If you look at the second trailer for the season, released by Disney about 3 weeks ago, we see this shot of the Razor Crest being chased in space, but we can't be sure when it occurs in the season. We also have the Razor Crest touching down on what I think is Greef Karga's planet from episode 1, the same planet the client is on. But these shots of Giancarlo Esposito's yet-to-be-named character, combined with the type of building in the back here, lead me to believe the Mandalorian will either be double-crossed or ambushed by them while returning back. The armor of the stormtroopers here are way cleaner than those employed by the client, so it looks like the Mandalorian's troubles will stem from Giancarlo, whom I guess will be the main villain of the season. Make sure to force meld that like button and subscribe for more Mandalorian videos. I'm planning to do the whole season, so be sure to put that bell on. I also want to hear what you think will happen next in the comments below. You can also follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.